Welcome to the Books of Titans podcast, where I seek truth in the world's best books. I'm your host, Eric Rostad, coming to you from the beautiful Books of Titans studio in Franklin, Tennessee. My goal is to read 52 books per year and share what I'm learning. I'll talk a bit about each book, tie ideas together from a variety of genres, and share the one thing I always hope to remember from each book. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. This is a special episode. I'm not going to be covering a book, but I'm going to be covering a bunch of books in that these are the books that I'm going to be reading for 2021. So we're in 2020 right now, where we're 30 plus days to go in the year. And what I do is, and this brings me actually great joy, is I spend the entire year thinking about what I'm going to be reading the next year. So this year I'm having a blast reading my 2020 reading list, but I'm also thinking a lot about what I want to be reading the next year. And so I keep a yearly notebook, and this is kind of my everything notebook. It's a journal, it's a meeting notes, it's calendar, I will mark down when people important to me have passed away. It's everything. But at the very beginning, I set aside a page or two for books that I come across during the year. Books that seem interesting, maybe ones that have been recommended to me, ones I've come across in a bookstore. And these are ones that may make my list. And by the end of the year, I have about 150 or so books that are on these lists. I mean, I'll take screenshots, I will mark them in spreadsheets, like them on Amazon. And so at the end of the year, I'm kind of compiling all these different areas of here's books I've come across that I really want to be reading. And I will give priority to books where maybe a friend has recommended, and then I've seen that in a bookstore and picked it up and, oh, this looks really interesting. Or maybe I've gotten an email about a book. And so if I see it in multiple places, or I've written the book down multiple times, that just tells me, hey, this is one that you really need to be reading. And so I think about this list, I put it together, and I just get a lot of thrill of doing that throughout the year. But with this year, I had a few different ideas in mind of how to put together my 2021 reading list. And I had some ideas of maybe not just doing it how I'd been doing it since 2017. So I had three main ideas, and these are three different ways I was thinking of approaching my 2021 reading list. The first was just to go through books that were in a part of a series. So maybe like Harry Potter, trying to get through all 7 books in a year and just reading them in order. So choosing only books that are part of a series or a set. That was one idea. The other was just to do the 52 books again, and maybe there were some sets of books in there, but also just the books that I wanted to be reading, and I'd been notes, so kind of how I'd been doing things. The third was one that I actually shared on a previous episode and said that I would be doing for 2021. And the story behind that option is that earlier this year, the owner of the bookstore here in Franklin, Tennessee, told me, Eric, there's something I want to give you, and it is a travel chest, and this is a travel chest of an opera singer from the 1900s. So the opera singer, she was born in 1900 and passed away in 1999. And this travel chest, the owner Joel, from Landmark Booksellers here, he came across this at an estate sale, and you open this thing up, and it is every detail about this woman's life, and it is fascinating. I mean, it is her journals, it's her letters that she wrote to people. It is she was invited to the White House by Eleanor Roosevelt to sing opera. It is all of the programs of places she sang. She was singing in Germany in 1938. I mean, right before World War II breaks out. She's singing all over Europe in the 30s. So, I mean, it's just fascinating going through this travel chest. And I'm thinking it'd be awesome to create a reading list around what I'm seeing in this travel chest. So maybe questions I have of what would it have been like to be a part of the opera scene in 1930s Europe? Is there a book about that? Maybe it's fiction or nonfiction, but is there some way I can kind of get a better grasp of what that would have been like? This woman's first opera that she sang in was Carmen. Maybe I could read a book about the opera Carmen and what it was like to see that opera when it first came out in the 1800s in France. Maybe it is the ships the ocean liners that she took from the States to Europe. Maybe reading a book about those. How were they built? How long did they go? What would a ticket have cost? That, just kind of those things, and basically building a reading list around what I discover in this travel chest as an effort to get to know more about this woman's life. If you look up this woman online, she is nowhere to be found. So it's just kind of neat in this world of where if you're not online, you don't exist in a way. Here's this woman who a travel chest full of things, and kind of bringing that to life through a reading project. But here's what I ended up deciding to do for 2021, and that is to go with the first option of series. And so I know in a few episodes ago I did say that I'd be doing the opera singer, but I have decided not to do that for 2021, and I'm going to go with sets of books. And there's a few reasons for that. One is that we're coming towards the end of 2020, and I am quite behind on my 2020 reading list. So I 52 books on my list for this year. I'm on book 40, and there's just no way I'm going to get through 12 more books this year. But 7 of those 12 books are part of the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. And so I decided to move that to 2021 since I'm going to be reading these series of books. So Chronicles of Narnia is moving, and so that just removes 7 of the books, and I think I'll be able to get through the rest of the books on my 2020 reading list. Also, the idea of these series of books, or books that are part of a set, that's kind of what I've been thinking about for 2021. I've just been collecting different sets of books that I'd wanted to read, and some of these are ones that I'd wanted to read for a very long time. So But some of the books in these sets are huge, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to do 52 books if I'm reading these sets. So that was another thing. I'm kind of stepping back the number of books for next year, and I will be doing 35 books instead of 52. Now, if I finish those 35 books early, I will add more, but in terms of number of pages for these 35 books, it's a lot, and it'll be a lot of pages per day that I need to read. So I want to be realistic and not go crazy by wanting to read these sets, but also trying to get 52 books in. So here are the books that are part of that series. The first is the Chronicles of Narnia, as I mentioned. So that'll be books 1 through 7. I'll just read those in order. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, The Voyage of Don Trader, The Silver Chair, The Horse and His Boy, The Magician's Nephew, and The Last Battle. I have never read the full set of these books. C.S. Lewis is my favorite author. These are some of the very first books I ever remember reading as a child. I took The Silver Chair to school with me in elementary school. We'd be able to read at lunch, and I had that book with me. I remember reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by fish tank light when I was a child. I had a fish tank in the room, and I would turn the light on it so I could see at night. And I remember reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So also my daughter is listening to these books, and it's not the full version, but it gets a lot of the story. And so she's bragging to me that she is getting through these before I am. And so I've got to read them. And I think I may actually read them with my daughters. So we'll see, but very excited about that because I've never read through those. The second set is the Robert Caro LBJ series. So Lyndon B. Johnson, Robert Caro wrote 4 books about LBJ. They are very famous, and I just continue to hear really good things about this set. And so the first is The Path to Power, then Means of Ascent, Master of the Senate, and The Passage of Power. There's also reportedly a fifth book that may be coming out, and if that is released during 2021, I will add it to the list. But these books are here. It's almost 3,000 total pages in these 4 books. But from what I hear about them, it is just full of detail. So if Lyndon Johnson grew up in a specific town in Texas, you will learn a lot about that town in Texas. Robert Caro just kind of keeps digging and digging and going down these rabbit holes or rabbit trails. So I'm excited about reading this. It won the Pulitzer Prize, and yeah, I've had the books and I've wanted to read them. Now they will be a part of my reading list. After that, excuse me. After that, I'm reading the Lord of the Rings trilogy by Tolkien. Again, I've never read these. I've read parts of it. I'm also going to add The Hobbit at the beginning, so it'll be 4 books total. I have read The Hobbit, so I'll start with The Hobbit, and then I will do The Fellowship of the Ring, which I have read, but I will be rereading. Then The Two Towers and The Return of the King, and I've not read those final 2. The next set, I'm calling it a break for Advent. And I'm going to read, the first book of this set is by Jason Staples, who is the podcast co-host. So if you've listened to some of the earlier episodes, that was Jason and I talking about books. If you just listened to the previous episode about Blood Meridian, that was Jason. And he has a book coming out in May. So you can actually pre-order it. I will link to it in the show notes. It's called The Idea of Israel in Second Temple Judaism, a new theory of people, exile, and Israelite identity. I'm really looking forward to this book. Jason's been working very hard on it. It's kind of a part of his dissertation that he wrote to get his PhD, and I know he's just put a ton of work into this, and I can't wait to read it. And so I figure I will be around May when I've finished those earlier books. After that, I'm doing a series of 3 books that are by my pastor here in the Nashville area, Russ Ramsey. And that is The Advent of the Lamb of God, The Mission of the Body of Christ, and The Passion of the King of Glory. So I read Russ's other book this year, and that was called Struck, and that was about his heart. He had a heart condition to where he almost died, and he kind of just writes about that experience. And so this other set of 3 books, Advent books, are the other books that he has written. After that, I'm going deep into the Civil War. So I'm going to read Shelby Foote's Civil War series. There are 3 volumes. The first one is Fort Sumter to Perryville, and then it goes from Fredericksburg to Meridian, and then Red River to Appomattox. And that is volume 3. I probably butchered that pronunciation. But I've also had this set, and I either live on or very, very close to where the Battle of Franklin took place. So I'm 2 miles from downtown Franklin, Tennessee, where the Battle of Franklin took place November 29th, 1864. And that was a battle that 10,000 people died. Some of it, I guess a lot of it was hand-to-hand combat. Just started out shooting at each other, but then as they were closing in, it ended up being a lot hand-to-hand. So just brutal. It happened right in the or near the downtown area of Franklin, and so I either live within a mile of where the battlefield was, or maybe some of it happened on where I live right now. So I'm just fascinated by the war. I've never read a book or a set that it covers the entire war. So I'm looking forward to this. There's a lot I need to learn about the Civil War. And in fact, the book I'm reading right now, the biography of Frederick Douglass, goes into the Civil War a little bit. And so again, it's just kind of feeding my desire to learn more. After that, I'm going to read the Harry Potter series, another series I've never read. I started the first book, just didn't get very far. And so I need to do it. I want to do it. So I'm going to read the 7 Harry Potter books. Those will be books 23 through 29. And that is 4,000 plus pages of material. after that, I'll finish off with the Russ Robert series. And Russ Robert is the host of the Econ Talk podcast. He's also a client of mine. I do website development, and I do his russroberts.info website. And so I've just gotten to know him a little bit through doing his website and then also listening to his podcast since 2013. So it's a great podcast if you need another podcast to listen to. It's 1 hour every Monday, and he usually will read a book and then interview the author. And it's just a wide variety. It's not just economics; it's just a wide variety of topics. And so he has 5 books right now, and then he has one coming out next year. So I'm going to read all 6 of his books. The first is The Invisible Heart: An Economic Romance. The second, The Choice: A Fable of Free Trade and Protectionism. And that is the third one is A Parable of Possibility and Prosperity. And then after that, How Adam Smith Can Change Your Life, which I actually read in 2018 as part of this reading project, but I want to read again. And then a book that came out last year, 2019, Gambling with Other People's Money: How Perverse Incentives Caused the Financial Crisis. So the first 3 are actually fiction, which should be interesting. So it's a approach to economics and teaching economics, but through a novel. So be a novel approach. And then the last 2 are nonfiction with Adam Smith and Gambling with Other People's Money. And then the one in 2021, I believe that will also be nonfiction. So those are the sets of books. There are 6 total sets with that break for Advent. I'm kind of putting those 4 books together as a set. So 21 fiction, 14 nonfiction, and that's the breakdown. But I'm really looking forward to this set of books. And it's a little different than what I've done the last 4 years, but it's good to mix things up every now and then too. So I want to finish off by challenging you to create a reading list for 2021. We have a little over a month left, so you have a lot of time to prepare it, to think about it. Maybe you've taken pictures of books throughout this year that you want to read, or you've jotted books down. Maybe you just need some ideas. So there's plenty of websites that give reading suggestions or reading lists. The Books of Titans website has a ton of resources in that regard as well. But just be thinking about that, of creating a list of books that you want to get through. And the first thing you want to do is just decide how many books you want to read. Maybe it's 12, one a month. Maybe it's 5. Maybe you just need to get started on reading, and so setting a goal of 5 is a good place to start. Maybe it's 26, so you read a book every other week, or 52 or 100. Just decide how many you want to read, and then as you're making that list, have a column where you note how many pages there are in that book. And then add all that together and divide it by 365. And that's how many pages you're going to need to read per day to get through it. So be realistic, but also challenge yourself as well. And for instance, my list this year, I needed to be reading 46 pages per day. And I've been averaging about 40. And so I'm behind. But last year, I needed to read 48. And I got through a month in advance. So it's good to know how many you need to read per day, but put that list together, randomize the order that will help you from stacking the ones that you really want to read at the beginning of the year, and then just start chipping away at it and working at it. And the reason I share this list is it's a way of accountability. I'm sharing that with you, this list with you guys, and just that act of sharing it makes me want to do it. Whether it's a sense of honor or just honesty of, hey, this is what I'm planning to do, and I want you guys to hold that to me. So that's a benefit for you to have your own reading list as well. If you share it with people, it creates a sense of accountability. You may even want to share it with people and say, hey, please just check in with me throughout the year and make sure I'm moving along on my reading list. It'll help you get through more books than in general, just making it a daily habit. I always like to think back to my friend who started running, and that act of starting to run changed a lot of other things in his life. He changed his diet. He started going to bed earlier, and it just had all these compounding effects in his life just from the act of starting to run and starting to make it maybe not a daily habit, but a regular habit. And the same thing with reading. If you start to make it a daily habit or a regular habit, it starts changing a lot of other things in your life. You may change the types of media you consume. You may start changing the way that you use your time. And you may realize that time is very precious and you want to be utilizing it well. And as part of that, you may want to be setting aside a certain amount of time per day to be reading. And that may mean that you need to give other things up. But if your goal is to get through a certain number of books, just having that list there and working through it one book at a time until you get through the list, that is a really good way to get through more books than you have in the past. As for my 2020 reading list, I will likely get through 45 books. So I moved the Chronicles of Narnia. That's 7 books. By doing that, I think I'll be able to get through the other books. So it's shy of the 52 books, but I've also read the Bible this year, a book about the Romanovs that was quite large, and then the biography I'm reading right now about Frederick Douglass, which is another large book. The Bible took me 60 days. I mean, it took me 2 months to read through it. That normally is a time period where I could probably get through 7 or 8 books. So I don't feel bad about not getting through the 52 books, especially with starting off the year with the Bible. But yeah, just having that goal there, it helps me to get through more books per year. So that's going to do it for this episode. If you have created a 2021 reading list, I'd love to see it. I'd love if you would email that to me at eric@booksoftitans.com. That's Eric with a K, so ERIK at booksoftitans.com. If you need help creating a reading list, go to the website, go to booksoftitans.com. The very first menu item is reading lists, and you can see what I'm reading. You can see what Jason is reading. You can see what other people who have shared their reading list with Books of Titans, you can see what they're reading. And then I also I've collected the books that are suggested in Tim Ferriss Show podcast episodes. So these are the books that people say are the ones that have had the biggest impact on their lives. And I've created a list of those books. So that's another good list to go through and just see what other people have suggested as the most important books. And these are top performers in a variety of fields. So check that out. I'll be back next week. I'll hopefully be discussing the Frederick Douglass biography if I've finished it by that point. And if not, it'll be another book from my 2020 reading list. So until then, keep reading, keep learning, and keep listening. I'm out.